one of the most prominent news items that came out of SatanCon was the burning of a Bible, not the burning of a Bible, the ripping up of a Bible on, I think, the first day of the conference. So there was somebody on the stage ripping apart a Bible, and this video went totally viral on social media. What was all that about?
Yeah, so I think that there are multiple interpretations of it. This was part of the invocation ceremony. This was like the commencement ceremony. They got up, and Chalice Blythe, one of the main spokespeople for the Satanic Temple and one of the leaders of SatanCon, got up and was talking about barriers to their activism, barriers to religious freedom, and how there are forces in American society right now that are fighting their right to exist, not just as Satanists, but as women, as queer people. And so they are getting up there to say, there's nothing that you can do to stop us. We are going to be here whether you like it or not. And in fact, we are going to destroy your symbols of oppression. So, Fox News, which seemed to circulate the clip most successfully. I saw they had like 30 million views on Twitter alone on this clip of Chalice ripping up the Bible. They didn't include footage of them ripping up and destroying other symbols. When they might have lost out by not including the fact that they also ripped a thin blue line flag, which is a pro-police flag, in half. And they also got a keyboard, which represented kind of like slacktivism, like online only activism that people gather around to say, I've left mean comments and that means that I'm helping. I'm a real activist, just like these people who are actually, leading, addiction recovery groups within Satanism. And so they destroyed a keyboard. They ripped a thin blue line flag. There may have been other symbols that they destroyed. I'm not totally sure. But then they ripped pages out of a Bible saying, we're here destroying symbols of oppression. Chalice Blythe was asked about this, and she said, this was not intended as a statement to intimidate Christians. It's not supposed to be an anti-Christian statement. This is a statement that the Bible has been used by this specific group in American culture to oppress marginalized people. And so we are going to get up as marginalized people and destroy this symbol to show that there's nothing that you can do to actually stop us.
I find it, there are two amazing things that I find in what you just said. The first is that they tore up a symbol of, did you say that a symbol of the police? This
a pro-police flag, the thin blue line flag.
Again, I mean, knowing nothing much about modern Satanism, and certainly not much about SatanCon in particular, it seems to me easy pickings for somewhere like Fox News to look at an organization that describe themselves as Satanists, that tear up a Bible, that are sort of seemingly at least anti-police, as this at least left-wing, possibly woke collection of people, many of whom are queer identifying. You know what I mean? That there's a sort of reputation that you're building for me around this kind of organization, which I imagine is a kind of reputation that they would want to resist.
Yeah, I think that, I'd have to ask, don't you think that things like Fox News, even before the Satanic Temple was even founded in 2013, used basically anything they could get to smear people as, we didn't have the term woke then, but as radical leftists and as even potentially satanic, even when people were not buying into or using these kinds of narratives?
Perhaps, but then I think tearing up a Bible on stage and then claiming that it's not an anti-Christian message is a bit testing for such people and for viewers of such channels who are looking at somebody tearing up the sacred scripture of a religion and then claiming that in doing so they're not supposed to be putting forward an anti-religious or anti-Christian message. I'm sort of struggling to make that work. Maybe you can run it by me again.
Yeah, no, I don't think that it's something, you don't necessarily have to completely buy Chalice's message. I do think that, having thought about this continuously since then, that it was primarily for, or at least in my opinion, primarily for the Satanists in the room. But I do think that it was supposed to be sending a message to the people who are going to put this out there. The main message was probably just, we're here, we're doing something provocative, look at us, pay attention to us. But the secondary message there is, you're not going to be able to intimidate us. There's nothing that you can actually do to stop us, and not stop us from oppressing you, but stop us from living our lives and pursuing happiness and liberty despite you trying to suppress that.
So there's a commentator and ex singer-songwriter in the UK called Lawrence Fox. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's part of the conservative journalist commentator crowd here in the UK, and recently he got into some hot water for burning pride flags in his back garden, setting them on fire. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't actually watch the video. I don't know why he did it. I don't know about the details, but I'm imagining Lawrence Fox burning some pride flags and then saying, this wasn't supposed to be an anti-LGBT message. This isn't supposed to be sort of anti-pride. This is, I'm just sort of burning a symbol that I think has become politicized and used to shut down debate and stifle free speech, or whatever it is he might think. Would you accept that kind of explanation if I were to tear up a pride flag right now to make a point and then say, but this isn't an anti-LGBT message?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I mean, my answer to that would depend on whether or not this person that's tearing up or burning pride flags has an entire organization that has, sober recovery groups, which are basically providing an alternative to institutional groups that kind of demand one specific perspective in order for someone to be a part of a group that's meant for you to come out of alcoholism. Do they have programs that are going in and advocating, and I mean actually advocating, boots on the ground, going to and speaking to teachers to keep children from being literally abused? And I don't mean being told that the opposition exists, but I mean beaten legally. Do they have programs that are going and giving, warm blankets to homeless people in the winters? Do they have programs where they're donating like feminine products to homeless women? Do they have all of these things set up in an institution that they're a part of that back up the idea that they're not just here to make a statement, they're not just here to intimidate, but they're also here to actually do good works in a very, you could say, Christ-like way? For the person burning the pride flag, if they had an entire institution behind them that they're a part of and that they're championing while doing that, that totally negates the idea that, or challenges at least the idea that they are trying to do something to intimidate people, and that is just kind of for pure evil. Maybe I take them seriously when they're burning that pride flag, that's not an anti-LGBT statement. As I'm sure you can tell, I'm referring to a lot of specific things that the Satanic Temple does. The majority of the function of the Satanic Temple, as far as I can tell with their activism, is ministering to the homeless, to food insecure people, from keeping people from literally hitting children, which is a legal thing to do in some school districts in the U.S. They are donating feminine products to homeless women. They are going in and protecting minority rights. And they also have, I think it's over 5,000 people in sober recovery groups, or sober groups. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's an alternative to AA, which kind of is backed up and funded by the U.S. government, but also demands that you believe in a God, or at least a higher power, in order to do it. It's called Sober Faction. It's very active. They've seen thousands of people actually come away from alcoholism through Sober Faction rather than Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is why, yes, while I look at the Bible tearing as something that it's a bit of a fuck you to Christians, that's not all it is, because they actually have done the work to back up the fact that it's not just that.
it sounds like you're saying something along the lines of particular behaviors and charitable campaigning can not just make up for doing something like ripping up a Bible or indeed setting fire to a pride flag, but somehow negate the message. That is, it also becomes the case that because the Satanic Temple are donating to charitable organizations, somehow tearing up a Bible isn't an anti-Christian message because the other things that they're doing are a little bit Christ-like in their nature. It seems to me that tearing up a Bible on stage has a quite straightforward purpose, one that if somebody wanted to claim that, no, that's not really what was going on there, requires a bit of convoluted mental gymnastics.
I wouldn't call it convoluted mental gymnastics. I would call it research and careful thought, additional thought beyond being reactionary. And so, like I was saying earlier, if people look at this discourse between Christians and Satanists and they're willing to look at it in a way that is reactionary, they'll see a very surface level thing. Christians are accusing people of being satanic, and then people are claiming Satanism and then doing bad things, and that's what's going on. The traditional narrative of good and evil, of Christ and Satan, is all intact. It all makes sense. But if you're willing to go just one level deeper, you see that it's so much more complicated than that. And that does not mean that you can't, interpret Satanists as doing something which is meant to, disrupt Christianity in some way. But the way that you see that they might be doing something to disrupt Christianity in some way will be different. If you just watch the clip of them tearing up the Bible, then you're going to take that away and be like, they just don't like Christians for some, dumb, shallow, surface reason, and that's why they're doing this. If you look deeper, though, you see that Satanists are doing things that are traditionally, attributed to Christians. And it's very challenging to the traditional idea of good and evil, especially in the American consciousness, to see people acting like Christ, basically, while also claiming Satanism. And it makes you realize that maybe actions, maybe behavior is more important than the symbols that people identify with, or maybe it's more important than tribal affiliation.
Andrew Tate saw the video of the Bible being torn up and retweeted it saying, "Try the Quran if you're so brave." Why wasn't there a Quran tearing as well at the SatanCon?
I mean, can we name a single instance of anyone trying to, put up like giant monuments to Muhammad or the Quran on federal property or like public property?
Well, I'm not sure if a Muslim would be particularly enthusiastic about putting up a big statue of Muhammad in a state building. I get what you're saying, but you as well as I must know about. I mean, if you believe in the concept of religious persecution, you must think that this happens within Islam as well as Christianity. And so it seems, in other words, a moment ago when I was discussing the implicit claim that SatanCon and Satanism is an anti-Christian organization, you say, no, it's not. It's sort of anti-tools of oppression generally that are represented in the Bible. Not the Quran as well?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I mean, they're not doing it right now because, generally speaking, people who are Satanists are in the West, especially in the U.S., and Canada, and they're not particularly affected by people using the Quran to try to institute, religious rule or to try to oppress anyone. But I think that you're right, that we do need to be looking for this on the horizon. I think that as Satanism spreads, which it's got over 700,000 members right now, just the Satanic Temple alone, and I don't think it's going to slow down. I do think eventually people will be, desecrating Qurans, or at least using kind of these satanic narratives to speak against the overreach of Islam. It's just not going on right now because, I mean, Muslims are one of the most distrusted and hated minorities in the U.S., along with atheists and Satanists. And so there's not really any reason, I think, in the minds of people who are already participating in Satanism to tear up a Quran. Maybe it will happen in the future, though.
The full conversation that the clip you just watched was taken from is available via the link that's on your screen. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.